certainty when it comes to perilous times. It says, but, it's a huge transition, know this, that in the last days. Often in Scripture, when you see that reference to last days, it's referring to messianic timing. And so anything from the first coming of Christ 2,000 years ago to the second coming of Christ that is yet future, all incorporated into those statements of last days. If you were to go to Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, it says, God, who at various times and in various ways spoke in times past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, through whom he made the worlds. In these last days, the book of Hebrews, written before 100 AD, already considered to be last times, the last days, because Christ had come the first time and awaited his second return. In this time period in which we find ourselves living today, perilous times will come. 20 centuries have passed since the writing of this book, and yet perilous times have come throughout those 20 centuries, and perilous times await for us today as well. Times there, within that period broad of the last days, referring to seasons most likely, where things are going to get especially intense. Maybe not consistent intensity all the way through, but times where things maybe flare up and then settle down, and then flare up again and then settle down. But the closer we get to the end of these last days and the closer to the coming of Christ, the more we see these things ratchet up in intensity as well. Described there as perilous in verse 1. Difficult, dangerous would be the idea that's there. Hard to deal with. Savage times are coming. And so not just, it might get a little rough for a while. No, it's the same term that was used back in that Matthew chapter 8, referring to two demon-possessed men who were extremely violent. 1 Timothy chapter 4, in the preceding book in verse 1, the Spirit expressly says that in latter times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons. Obviously, it's Satan at work. Obviously, it's Satan attempting to distract. It's Satan attempting to destroy. It is certain. It is coming. It is here. We must be on high alert. If I was in Hawaii and I heard that volcano might be erupting within the next 48 hours, what would I do? Well, I'd have two options, right? I could take the warning seriously and flee, or I could say, I haven't seen a volcano here in a long time. When it hits, I'll get out of the way. Right? It's how it works with the hurricane warnings that go out so often anymore. Some decide, well, it's probably not going to be so bad, we'll just wait it out. Others hit the road and get out of Dodge. That's the picture that we see here. Spiritual opposition is dangerous. It's coming. We need to be on high alert, and when it hits, when it attacks, we need to run away. Not have anything to do with it. It's certain. You come to verses 2 through 4, and you've got the character of spiritual opposition here in the passage. And there's 19 things that we find listed here. Some relating to spiritual opposition, the false teachers, and things that characterize them personally. Some things that characterize them relationally as they interacted with people. If you want to jot some of these down, you can. You don't have to get it all this morning. We're going to start with the personal ones. We'll jump to relational, and we'll jump back to personal. You see some of these things that characterize them when it comes to their personal relationship. It says there in verse number 2, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, and proud. They'll be lovers of self. Selfish, self-absorbed, self-consumed. It's humanism to its core. 2 Corinthians 5, we're instructed we should no longer live for self, but we should live for him who died and rose again for us. And yet in the last days, the characteristic of spiritual opposition is going to be people who live because they love themselves and they want to do whatever they can to please themselves. It ties in with that next one. They're lovers of money. They're greedy. They're covetous. They're never content. Instead of accumulating wealth, instead of working so that they can give to those who have need, they accumulate it simply to heap it on their own pleasures, to spend it on the things